From time to time, we talk about adaptive skills that our children need to learn in order for them to be successful in life. They're really important adaptive skills because not only does it help them to be more independent and help them to be more age appropriate, it's a matter of pride. It really is. And I know that some people kind of poo-poo that and say, oh, kids with autism, they don't really have a sense of that. I say, you know what? I don't agree with you. All you have to do is see a child on the autism spectrum, learn an adaptive skill, and be reinforced for it, and you see a child that their enjoyment of it is more than the reinforcement. I really honestly believe that they start to feel a sense of themselves and the pride in themselves that they can do it. You know, when I'm around neurotypical kids, it's always shocking to me now, having gone, I was always around neurotypical kids before, but now after having gone through what we went through with my son, I'm amazed at how pushy they are, that they go through a phase where the neurotypical kids where they go, I do it. And I certainly didn't experience that with my son. He maybe was pushing me out of the way, but he couldn't say I do it, so I didn't know it was that he wanted to do it, if that's what was happening. But we were behind on adaptive skills, really behind when we started ABA therapy, and it's a tremendous thing to be able to watch your child gain skills and start to take responsibility for themselves and their body and the environment around them. It's really a very exciting thing. And so from time to time we talk about individual adaptive skills and how we can set ourselves up for success to teach them and at greater success. So today I wanted to talk about fastening and unfastening, and in particular, buttons and that kind of thing, but we can include zippers in this, that it's a key part of dressing and undressing, and it's a key part of toileting, because if you can't unbutton your pants, accidents are likely to happen, right? You can be standing there feeling like I gotta go, but if you can't get it off, it's really going to be hard. It's an area that has big repercussions in lots of different ways. And it's great because it can ultimately be a stress reduction thing, because when the child can dress themselves, it leaves us room to be doing other things as well, right? So definitely an area that we want to work on with all of our kids, fastening and unfastening with fasteners. So here are some different tips that we put together for you, that when you're working on these kinds of things, it's always better to start with whatever the fastener is not already on their person. Think about this for a second. And believe me, as soon as you hear this, you go, well, of course, but I didn't know this going into it. But how much easier is it for someone to be able to see the zipper on the pair of jeans as it's laying on the bed and practicing zipping and clipping the little thing down and unzipping it, right? Because they have visual on it, as opposed to sitting and looking at it on themselves this way and having to be hunched over and physically what it's doing to them. So we always want to start with these kinds of things in a place where they can be looking at it directly and be physically comfortable, and really practice it and give lots of opportunities to practice it in that way before we have an expectation of them being successful doing it with a limited view. And if you stop and think about it, how many articles of clothing do our kids have, and how many articles of clothing do we have where we can't get any visual? The zipper that's in the back of the skirt that you have to put on, that makes it really difficult. And we got good at that through practice, right? Well, same thing for our kids. Now, you can do this in lots of different ways. You literally can take the pair of jeans and put them on the bed, and you don't have to make anything new or do anything new, but the child can see it, and you can practice the zipping and reinforcing the right movement. Eventually, you're going to have to, then you can turn it around and maybe don't put it on the child and have them do it with it turned around, so that they get the feel of, oh, my hand has to actually be in a different configuration when I'm on it, but they're still able to hold it outside from themselves themselves, and eventually work towards it being on their body. But one of the other things that I have here, actually the first thing that I have, is really ideal when you can to practice larger than life. So that one of the things that I remember when we were working on buttons with my son, my mom, who's a sewer and a quilter and all those things, I said, could you make me a vest that has some really huge buttons on it and really huge buttonholes, so that I set him up for success? That there's no, and make the buttonholes, cut the buttonholes bigger than the buttons, so that he's going to be able to figure this out and do this. And, we just took some muslin or some leftover fabric, whatever, and some leftover buttons and did that. So there wasn't a huge cost, and it took my mother, who sews, a very short period of time. You can find this in toys, you can find it in coats, you can do it in that kind of thing, but practice it larger than life and then scale it down to what the average size things are. Practice it often and plan for generalization. So like we did the buttons on the vest, and the vest was only useful for a couple of days, and then we gave it to somebody else to use. And then we made one that had lots of different kinds of buttons, and the shank buttons and the hole buttons. So make sure you plan for generalization, that it's got to be all different kinds of buttons, not one kind and one color. And reinforce, reinforce, reinforce. Make them know how proud you are of them and reward them for doing these great skills. It's going to make it really worthwhile for toileting and so many other things. School's going to be easier when they can fasten and unfasten.